Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands with a worn rag, the familiar scent of motor oil and metal shavings filling his small repair shop. At 28, he had inherited more than just his grandmother's stubborn streak. He'd also received her mysterious mountain property in the Colorado Rockies. The old woman had passed away 3 months ago, leaving behind cryptic notes about the dome and humanity's greatest gift. The inheritance paperwork sat crumpled on his workbench between spare engine parts and half-empty coffee cups. Most people would have sold the remote property immediately, but Marcus felt drawn to it. His grandmother, Elena Chun, had been an aerospace engineer before retiring to the mountains. She'd always spoken in riddles about her work, claiming she'd discovered something that would change everything when the time was right. After closing his shop for the weekend, Marcus loaded his pickup truck with basic supplies and drove the winding mountain roads toward his inheritance. The GPS lost signal after the first hour, forcing him to rely on his grandmother's hand-drawn map. The path grew narrower and more treacherous with each mile, eventually becoming little more than a dirt trail carved into the mountainside. When he finally reached the coordinates, Marcus found himself staring at what appeared to be an enormous metallic dome partially buried in the mountain itself. The structure stretched nearly 200 feet across, its surface reflecting the afternoon sunlight with an almost mirror-like quality. Unlike any building material he'd ever seen, the dome seemed to shimmer with an inner light that pulsed rhythmically like a massive heartbeat. Marcus parked his truck and approached the structure cautiously. His engineering mind cataloged every detail: the seamless construction, the absence of visible joints or welds, and the complete lack of any traditional entry points. The surface felt warm to the touch despite the mountain's cool temperature, and when he pressed his palm against it, the metal seemed to respond with a gentle vibration. Walking around the dome's perimeter, Marcus discovered what looked like a small maintenance shed built against the mountain wall. Inside, he found his grandmother's personal belongings: research journals filled with technical diagrams, photographs of strange artifacts, and most importantly, a device that resembled a sophisticated remote control. The journal's final entry, dated just weeks before her death, contained a simple message: "Marcus will understand. The time has come for humanity to reclaim what was always ours." The remote control felt heavier than it should have, its surface covered with symbols that seemed familiar yet impossible to decipher. When Marcus accidentally pressed what appeared to be a central button, the dome's surface began to change. Sections of the metal shifted and folded back on themselves, revealing an opening large enough for several people to walk through side by side. Inside, emergency lighting activated automatically, casting long shadows down a corridor that stretched deep into the mountain. The walls were lined with the same mysterious metal as the exterior, but here Marcus could see intricate patterns etched into the surface, geometric designs that seemed to move and shift when viewed from different angles. As he ventured deeper into the structure, Marcus discovered the dome was far larger than it appeared from outside. The corridors opened into vast chambers filled with machinery unlike anything in human technology. Crystalline structures pulsed with energy, connected by cables that seemed to be made of living metal. The air hummed with power, and Marcus could feel static electricity raising the hair on his arms. In the central chamber, he found what could only be described as a control room. Dozens of screens displayed information in languages he couldn't read, while holographic projections showed star maps and technical schematics. But it was the massive viewing window that took his breath away. Through the transparent barrier, Marcus could see not the Colorado mountains, but the vast expanse of space itself. The impossible sight made him stumble backward. This wasn't just a building, it was a spacecraft, somehow buried within the mountain, but still capable of showing the universe beyond. As his mind struggled to process what he was seeing, one of the displays flickered and changed, showing text in perfect English. "Welcome, Marcus Chun. Your genetic pattern has been recognized." Beginning orientation protocol. A holographic figure materialized before him, a tall, slender being with elongated features and large, intelligent eyes. Despite its alien appearance, something about the figure seemed oddly familiar. When it spoke, its voice carried the same warmth Marcus remembered from his grandmother's bedtime stories. I am Zethkar, though your grandmother knew me as Dr. Zethan. I have been waiting many years for your arrival. There is much you must learn about your true heritage and the role your species was meant to play in the greater galaxy. Marcus sank into what appeared to be a command chair, his legs no longer able to support him. What are you talking about? Who are you? Where is this place? This facility has been hidden on your world for over 60 years. Since the day your grandmother helped me crash land during what your people call the Roswell incident. But we were not invaders, Marcus. We were refugees fleeing a war that has consumed much of the galaxy. And your species, humanity, holds the key to ending that war? The hologram gestured to the star maps floating around them. Your grandmother spent decades helping me repair this ship and study human potential. What we discovered will astound you. Humans possess an ability that no other species in the galaxy has ever demonstrated, the power to interface directly with quantum technologies. Marcus laughed, a sound edged with hysteria. That's impossible. We're just mechanics and farmers and office workers. We can barely get along with each other, let alone interface with alien technology. Yet you activated the dome's opening sequence without any training. You're sitting in a command chair that has bonded with your nervous system. Even now, you can feel the ship systems responding to your thoughts, can't you? As if summoned by the alien's words, Marcus became aware of a gentle presence at the edge of his consciousness. Information flowed into his mindship status reports, environmental controls, navigation data. Somehow, impossibly, he understood all of it. The war I mentioned, Zethkar continued, is being fought against a species called the Devourers. They consume entire worlds, stripping them of all life and resources before moving on to the next target. Every civilized species in the galaxy has fallen before them except one. Let me guess, Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. Humans. Humans have never encountered them because your world has been hidden, protected by technology my people developed specifically for this purpose. But the protection is failing. My ship's sensors detect Devourer scout vessels at the edge of your solar system. They will arrive within 1 year. The weight of this revelation settled on Marcus like a physical burden. His simple life as a mechanic had just become infinitely more complicated. So what happens now? Do I call the government? The military? Your grandmother and I spent decades preparing for this moment. This facility contains the blueprints for technologies that will give humanity the weapons and defenses needed to survive the coming war. But more than that, it contains the means for your species to take its rightful place as the galaxy's protectors. Zethkar waved his hand, and the displays around them filled with technical schematics. Marcus found himself understanding the designs with frightening clarity faster than light engines. Energy weapons, defensive shields, all based on principles that seem to blend science with something approaching magic. The first step is to activate the fabrication systems. This ship can produce the initial fleet of vessels humanity will need, but it requires a human operator. Someone who can bridge the gap between your species, intuitive understanding of quantum mechanics and our technological knowledge. Marcus stood up from the command chair, pacing to the viewing window where stars wheeled silently in the void. You're asking me to help humanity become a spacefaring civilization practically overnight. To prepare for a war against creatures I can't even imagine. And you expect me to do this because my grandmother left me a mountain? I expect you to do this because you are exactly what the galaxy needs. Marcus Chun, your grandmother saw it in you when you were just a child. The way you could fix any machine simply by touching it, understanding its problems without formal training. The way you've always felt like you belonged somewhere else, somewhere among the stars. The words hit closer to home than Marcus wanted to admit. He'd always felt restless in his small-town life. Always dreamed of something greater waiting for him beyond the horizon. Now that something greater was staring him in the face, demanding he make a choice that would affect not just his own future, but the future of his entire species. As he stood there, weighing the impossible decision before him, Marcus felt the ship's systems calling to him, offering their power and knowledge. Deep in his genetic memory, something stirred an ancestral understanding that humans were meant for more than just one small world. The stars outside seemed to pulse with promise and threat in equal measure, waiting for his answer. Marcus made his decision as dawn broke over the Colorado Rockies. Standing in the ship's fabrication bay, he watched in amazement as molecular assemblers began constructing humanity's first interstellar fighter from raw materials drawn from the mountain itself. The process defied everything he thought he knew about manufacturing. Metals flowed like liquid. Crystalline components grew from seed matrices, and complex electronics assembled themselves according to quantum blueprints. Zethkar had explained that the fabrication process would take weeks to complete a full squadron of fighters, but watching the first ship take shape filled Marcus with a mixture of wonder and terror. Each vessel was designed specifically for human pilots, their control systems optimized for the unique way human consciousness interfaced with quantum fields. "The ships will require pilots," Zethkar's hologram said, materializing beside Marcus as he observed the construction. "Not just any pilots, individuals whose quantum resonance matches the ship's systems. Your grandmother helped me identify potential candidates over the years." Marcus turned away from the mesmerizing fabrication process. "How many people know about this place? About what's coming?" "Currently only you. But Elena left detailed files on 17 individuals across your world who show the necessary potential. Military pilots, engineers, scientists, people whose minds work in ways that complement our technology. You'll need to contact them soon." The responsibility felt overwhelming. Marcus was being asked to recruit a team of total strangers, convince them to abandon their lives and prepare for interstellar warfare against an enemy that consumed planets. He'd always been better with machines than people, preferring the honest simplicity of mechanical problems to the complexities of human nature. Over the following days, Marcus immersed himself in studying the ship's databases. The information available was staggering, detailed analyses of every major galactic civilization. Tactical reports from battles fought across thousands of star systems. And most disturbing of all, recordings of worlds being consumed by the Devourers. The enemy was unlike anything in human imagination. They weren't a species in any recognizable sense, but rather a collective consciousness that infected and transformed organic life into extensions of itself. Entire populations would be converted into living weapons, their ships grown from the bones of consumed worlds. The recordings showed planets stripped bare in a matter of days, their atmospheres consumed, their cores hollowed out to fuel the Devourer fleet. "Every species we've encountered has the same weakness," Zethkar explained during one of their planning sessions. "They think in terms of technology versus technology, weapon against weapon. But the Devourers adapt to conventional tactics almost instantly. They learn, they evolve, they become immune to whatever strategies worked before." Marcus studied the tactical displays showing humanity's potential advantages. "But humans are different because we don't follow conventional patterns? Humans are different because you don't just use technology, you become one with it. When a human pilot bonds with our ships, the distinction between organic thought and quantum processing disappears. The Devourers have never encountered anything like it because no other species has ever achieved true symbiosis with their tools." This explanation came with practical demonstrations. Marcus spent hours in the ship's training simulators, learning to pilot the newly fabricated fighters. The experience was unlike anything he'd imagined. The ship's systems didn't just respond to his commands, they anticipated his needs. When he thought about turning left, the ship was already adjusting its attitude. When he wanted to target an enemy, the weapons locked on before he'd consciously decided to fire. The first completed fighter emerged from the fabrication bay 3 weeks after Marcus had activated the systems. Sleek and organic-looking, it resembled no human aircraft ever built. Its hull was a deep blue-black that seemed to absorb light, while energy conduits ran along its surface like glowing veins. The ship was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Marcus's first real flight took him high above Earth's atmosphere, where he could see the planet as Zethkar's people must have when they first arrived. The fighter's sensors were incredibly advanced, capable of detecting ships at interplanetary distances. What they showed him made his blood run cold. Three objects were moving through the outer solar system, their trajectories clearly artificial. They were still months away from Earth, but their approach was undeniable. The Devourer scouts had found humanity's world. "It's time to contact the others," Marcus said when he returned to the mountain facility. "We can't wait any longer." Zethkar provided him with encrypted communication equipment and detailed psychological profiles of each potential recruit. The alien had spent decades observing these individuals, tracking their careers and abilities. Marcus's job was to somehow convince them to drop everything and travel to a secret location in Colorado. His first call was to Captain Sarah Martinez, a test pilot for experimental aircraft at Edwards Air Force Base, according to Zethkar's files. She had shown remarkable adaptability in high-stress situations and possessed an intuitive understanding of flight dynamics that bordered on supernatural. "Captain Martinez, this is going to sound insane, but I need you to listen carefully. Your country needs you for a classified project that will determine the survival of human civilization." The conversation didn't go well. Martinez demanded credentials, threatened to report him to security, and hung up twice before Marcus finally convinced her to at least look at the evidence he could provide. Similar calls to other candidates yielded mixed results. Some were intrigued enough to investigate further. Others dismissed him as a conspiracy theorist. The breakthrough came when Dr. James Fletcher, a quantum physicist from MIT, agreed to visit the facility. Fletcher had published papers on consciousness technology, interfaces that came remarkably close to describing the principles behind the alien ships. When he saw the fabrication bay in operation, his scientific skepticism crumbled. "This is impossible," Fletcher whispered, watching the molecular assemblers work. "The energy requirements alone should collapse the entire mountain. The quantum calculations necessary to coordinate this level of matter manipulation." He trailed off, staring at the partially completed spacecraft. "It's not impossible if you think about consciousness as a quantum field," Marcus explained, surprising himself with how naturally the concepts came to him. "The ships don't just process information, they experience it. They feel their way through problems the same way we do." Fletcher's arrival marked the beginning of a transformation at the mountain facility. Within days, other candidates began arriving as word spread through carefully selected networks. Captain Martinez finally appeared after Fletcher vouched for the project's legitimacy. Engineer Lisa Park came from Seoul after her military contacts confirmed the situation was real. Astronaut Michael Torres drove up from Houston, bringing years of spaceflight experience. Each new arrival had to undergo the same shock Marcus had experienced seeing the impossible made real, accepting that humanity was about to join a galactic war they'd never known existed. But they also had to prove they could interface with the ship's systems. Not everyone who showed potential in Zethkar's observations could actually achieve the necessary quantum resonance. The selection process was grueling. Candidates spent hours in neural interface chambers, trying to establish connections with the ship's quantum computers. Some succeeded immediately, their consciousness sliding into the ship's systems as if they'd been designed for each other. Others struggled for days before achieving even basic connectivity. A few couldn't establish any connection at all and had to be gently dismissed from the program. Marcus found himself emerging as the group's natural leader, his deep understanding of the ship's systems making him the bridge between human thinking and alien technology. But leadership brought new pressures. These people had abandoned their lives based on his word, and their survival depended on decisions he was barely qualified to make. The first coordinated training exercise took place 6 weeks after the program began. 5 completed fighters launched simultaneously from hidden bays carved into the mountain, their pilots learning to operate as a unit rather than individuals. The ships communicated through quantum entanglement, sharing sensory data and tactical information faster than human nervous systems could process. During the exercise, Marcus experienced something unprecedented. For brief moments, he could feel the other pilots' thoughts and emotions, their consciousness blending with his through the ship's interconnected systems. It was intimate and overwhelming, a level of human connection that had never existed before. "You're beginning to understand," Zethkar observed after the exercise. This is why the Devourers cannot defeat humanity. They function as a collective consciousness, but it's imposed from above, forced unity. What you're developing is chosen unity individuals who remain themselves while becoming part of something greater. The first Devourer scout ship entered Earth's atmosphere on a Tuesday morning. Appearing as a dark smudge against the blue sky over the Pacific Ocean, unlike the sleek vessels humanity had constructed, the enemy craft seemed grown rather than built, a twisted amalgamation of metal and organic tissue that pulsed with malevolent life. Marcus felt its presence through the quantum network before any conventional sensors detected it. The ship's approach triggered a deep revulsion in every human pilot connected to the system, as if some primordial part of their minds recognized an existential threat. This was their first real test. 3 months of intensive training were about to be measured against an enemy that had devoured galaxies. "All wings, this is command," Marcus transmitted through the quantum link, his consciousness touching each of his pilots across thousands of miles. "Target is confirmed, Devourer Scout. Rules of engagement are simple. Nothing gets past us to reach civilian populations." 12 human fighters launched from hidden bases across North America, their quantum drives allowing them to reach the Pacific in minutes. As they approached the enemy vessel, Marcus felt his team's growing unease through their neural connections. The scout ship was larger than their intelligence had suggested, nearly 2 miles long and bristling with weapons that defied classification. Captain Martinez was the first to engage, her fighter dancing through space around the massive vessel, while her quantum weapons struck at what appeared to be sensor clusters. "It's not responding like our simulations predicted," she reported, her thoughts tinged with concern. "The hull is regenerating faster than I can damage it." This was the moment Marcus had dreaded, the possibility that even their advanced human-alien hybrid technology might not be enough. But as he watched the battle unfold through his team's shared consciousness, he noticed something the individual pilots might miss. The enemy ship's regeneration followed predictable patterns, its healing focused on areas of greatest damage rather than strategic importance. "All units, listen carefully," Marcus transmitted, his tactical awareness enhanced by connection to all 12 fighters simultaneously. "The ship doesn't prioritize repairs, it just heals whatever hurts most. We're going to use that against it." What followed was unlike any battle in human history. The pilots moved as extensions of a single will, their ships coordinating attacks with impossible precision. When one fighter drew the enemy's attention and firepower, others struck at newly exposed systems. When the ship began adapting to their weapons, they shifted tactics faster than its organic components could evolve. Dr. Fletcher, piloting with the scientific precision that had made him Earth's leading quantum physicist, discovered the key to their victory. "The organic components and the mechanical systems aren't fully integrated," he reported through the link. "There's a delay in communication between them. If we can exploit that gap..." The revelation transformed their approach. Instead of treating the scout ship as a single entity, they began targeting the interfaces between its biological and technological components. Marcus felt a surge of savage satisfaction through the quantum network as their coordinated assault finally began causing irreparable damage. The enemy vessel's death throes were unlike anything in human experience. It screamed across multiple dimensions, a sound that bypassed the ears and struck directly at the pilot's consciousness. Through the quantum link, Marcus felt his team's shared horror as they realized the ship had been alive in a way that made its destruction feel like murder. "Stay focused," Marcus transmitted, fighting his own revulsion. "This is what the Devourers do to entire civilizations. What we just killed would have consumed millions of innocent lives." The scout ship's destruction sent shockwaves across Earth's scientific and military communities. Despite efforts to contain information about the battle, too many people had witnessed the impossible aerial combat. Within hours, every major government was demanding explanations for the appearance of advanced aircraft in their airspace. Marcus found himself in the surreal position of briefing the President of the United States via secure video link, trying to explain how a small-town mechanic had become commander of humanity's first interstellar defense force. The conversation required revealing the existence of the Mountain Facility, the Alien Alliance, and the approaching Devourer fleet. You're telling me we have 6 months to prepare for an invasion by creatures that have conquered the entire galaxy? President Harrison's voice carried the weight of impossible decisions. And our best hope is a dozen pilots flying ships we don't understand, using technology we can't reproduce? The technology is reproducible, sir, but only by humans who can interface with the quantum systems. We're working to expand the pilot program, but the learning curve is steep. Marcus paused, feeling the weight of his team's expectations through their neural link. What we really need is time to build more ships and train more pilots. Time was exactly what they didn't have. Long-range sensors showed the main Devourer fleet had accelerated their approach, clearly responding to the loss of their scout. The alien force now comprised over 200 vessels of various sizes, from small fighters equivalent to Earth's new craft to massive world ships capable of stripping entire planets. The next 3 months became a desperate race against extinction. The Mountain Facility's fabrication systems ran continuously, producing new fighters as quickly as raw materials could be processed. Recruitment expanded globally as Zethkar's databases revealed potential pilots in every major nation. Military academies, space programs, and research institutions yielded candidates who showed the necessary quantum resonance. Not everyone who trained successfully survived the process. The neural interface required to control the ships placed enormous stress on human consciousness. 3 pilots suffered complete psychological breakdown during training, their minds unable to cope with the alien technology's demands. 2 more died when prototype ships malfunctioned during test flights, their quantum cores destabilizing catastrophically. Each loss hit Marcus harder than the last. These people had trusted him with their lives, abandoning everything they knew to follow his lead into an impossible war. Through the quantum network, he felt their family's grief as if it were his own, a constant reminder of the stakes they were all facing. But for every tragedy, there were also breakthroughs. Dr. Park's engineering team discovered ways to enhance the fabrication process, reducing production time for new fighters from weeks to days. Captain Torres developed training protocols that cut pilot preparation time in half without sacrificing effectiveness. Most importantly, the growing network of human consciousness connected through the ships was becoming something unprecedented in galactic history. "You're evolving," Zethkar observed during one of their strategy sessions. "Not just technologically, but as a species. The quantum network is creating connections between individual humans that have never existed before. You're becoming a collective consciousness while remaining individuals, exactly what we hoped but never dared expect." The aliens' words proved prophetic during the second enemy encounter. A trio of Devourer raiders attempted to establish a beachhead on Earth's moon, their ships landing near the Apollo 11 site in what might have been deliberate psychological warfare. The human response demonstrated how far they'd evolved beyond their initial capabilities. 24 fighters launched simultaneously from bases across the globe, their pilots' consciousness merging into a tactical intelligence that spanned continents. Marcus found himself experiencing the battle from multiple perspectives, seeing through sensors in lunar orbit, while simultaneously feeling the emotional responses of pilots thousands of miles apart. The enemy raiders were more advanced than the scout ship, their hulls incorporating lessons learned from the previous battle. But they faced an opponent that had evolved as well. The human fighters moved with inhuman precision, their pilots sharing sensory data and tactical insights faster than individual minds could process. When one ship was damaged, others compensated instantly. When the enemy adapted to their weapons, countermeasures appeared as if by telepathy. The battle lasted 18 minutes and ended with all 3 raider ships destroyed. More importantly, the human forces captured intact examples of Devourer biotechnology, providing their first real intelligence about how their enemies' ships functioned. Analysis of the captured materials revealed both encouraging and terrifying truths. The Devourers weren't invincible, their biotechnology had inherent limitations that could be exploited. But they were also more advanced than initial estimates suggested, their ships capable of regenerating from almost any damage given sufficient time and resources. The main fleet will arrive in 3 weeks, Marcus announced to his expanded command staff. They now numbered over 300 personnel, including pilots, support crew, and scientific advisors from dozens of nations. The mountain facility had grown into a sprawling complex that burrowed deep into the Colorado Rockies, its chambers filled with the constant activity of humanity's first space navy. Current projections show we'll have 86 operational fighters by then. With pilots trained to acceptable combat standards, Dr. Fletcher reported. His voice clinical but his emotions betraying deep concern through the